Hello, my name is JT Greathouse. I am the author of The Hand of the Sun King, which will be forthcoming in August from Gauntlet in the UK and Jabberwocky Literary in the US. Here it is. It's my debut fantasy novel. I've had short stories published in Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Orson Scott Card's Intergalactic Medicine Show, Podcastle, and elsewhere. But this is my first novel, and I'm very excited about it. And I hope that you will be too. It's a coming-of-age story about a character called Wen Alder, who is a young man who we first meet when he's about 8 years old, when his grandmother takes him out into the forest and begins to teach him her magic. The twist is that the country that he lives in, Nian, has recently been conquered by the Sienese Empire, which has made a project of going around the world and conquering other countries and absorbing their magic. And so technically his grandmother is breaking the law and putting him in a lot of danger by teaching him this. But it immediately fascinates him, and he sort of begins a lifelong obsession with magic. The story mostly focuses on Alder growing up and navigating a sort of difficult split identity. As I already kind of talked about, on his mother's side, his grandmother is a Niani witch who practices outlawed magic and is sympathetic towards a rebellion which wants to overthrow the empire and restore independence to Nian. But on his father's side, he descends from a long line of servants to the empire, including a hand of the emperor or an imperial sorcerer from several generations past, but his father's family has since fallen into disrepute and fallen out of favor, and so his father has sort of made a project of making sure that Alder is very well educated so that Alder can successfully pass the imperial examinations and enter imperial service at a high level, and therefore sort of restore their family to its former glory, or at least begin the process of restoring their family. So throughout the story, Alder has to decide which of those two paths he wants to follow, but ultimately he's most interested in pursuing this obsession that gets started in him as a very young boy when his grandmother first shows him magic, which is to learn more about magic and to kind of master that. It's like I said, a coming-of-age story. I took a lot of inspiration from Ursula Le Guin's A Wizard of Earthsea. The book has a lot of external conflict, obviously, in terms of the empire and the countries that it's conquering or has conquered. But also, there's a significant focus on internal conflict, on Alder making decisions and potentially coming to regret them, or having to realize mistakes that he's made and then try to learn from them, potentially successfully, potentially unsuccessfully. But that's the kind of story that it is. It's not so much like an adventure fantasy, it's more of a political fantasy with a strong focus on character growth. But that's the kind of story I like to read, and that's the story I wrote, and hopefully it's the kind of story some of you will enjoy. And so, The Hand of the Sun King, out on August 8th.
From a distance it might have been an army of statues, or of the dead. 6,000 riders upon a plain of ice and snow, in a land where it seemed that nothing might live. The wind rattled against tall spears like a gale passing through a winter forest, but the horses did not stir, and under close-carved helms and thick-furred hoods the men's eyes seemed hollows with no glimmer of life. Seen from afar, one might have thought them a great monument carved to a forgotten king, or an army from a long-forgotten war struck down by curse or spell, doomed to stand in place for eternity and wait for a command that would never come. So, my name is Tim Leach, and I'm here to introduce my new book out on August 5th, A Winter War. It's the first in a historical adventure trilogy that's sort of my love letter to the books of Rosemary Sutcliffe, Eagle of the Ninth, The Silver Branch, The Lantern Bearers, that sort of thing. So we begin on the banks of the frozen Danube in 173 AD, where the Sarmatians, who are a sort of very fascinating, not very written about tribe of sort of nomadic Eurasian horse people, are about to go to war with the mighty Roman army. There's a battle for survival, there's an escape across the snow and ice, there's rivalries between brothers and sisters, there's great Amazon warrior women in it, despotic Roman emperors, and even a very, very unlikely Arthurian mythological connection as well. So if you like ice and snow, you like the idea of a battle fought on a frozen river to kick things off, and you like the books of Rosemary Sutcliffe or Mary Renault or anything that I've done before, maybe check out A Winter War. I hope you do. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Ian Green. I'm a writer from Northern Scotland. This is a little introduction to me and also to my debut novel, The Gauntlet and the Fist Beneath. So I've been writing for about a decade, writing mainly science fiction and fantasy. Been published in a variety of wee magazines and anthologies, and also broadcast in a few different places. My debut novel, The Gauntlet and the Fist Beneath, is coming out on August 5th. It's the first novel in a trilogy being published by Head of Zeus, and it's an epic fantasy. It's very action-packed. It's in a very unique world, which is somewhat inspired by the landscapes of Scotland and also the concepts of kind of Celtic animism. And it's this world of warring juntas and endless arcane storms and monsters, where it's every moment of survival has to be paid for by, a pretty militant population. So the story follows Flore, who's someone who previously was a soldier. She's now retired, and she has to kind of step back into that role she'd left behind after these strange lights appear in the sky and begin abducting children, including her own daughter. So it's a very breakneck chase for her to try and find her daughter, to find out the truth about what these orbs are doing, and to hopefully find out what this means on the grander scale as well. As I said, it's the first book of a trilogy. I've just finished writing book 2, which is off from my editor just now, so it's all steam ahead, and I'm looking forward to seeing what people think about it. It's I'm really excited. So if Celtic animism and giant bear gods and sword fights and fist fights with wolves and that kind of stuff sounds fun to you, then this might be up your street.
Hi, I'm Cameron Johnston, author of The Traitor God and God of Broken Things, strategically placed behind me, and my new book, gritty epic fantasy, The Maleficent 7. Now, it's perhaps unsurprisingly a darker fantasy take on The Seven Samurai or The Magnificent Seven, but this time with 7 fantasy villains instead of brave heroes. Inside the cover you will find a dread demonologist, an ex-war god, a necromancer, a vampire lord, an orc war leader, a pirate queen, and a mad alchemist. When reading or watching Lord of the Rings, I often used to wonder what the story would be like from Sauron's point of view. I mean, really, he's just trying to industrialise Mordor and bring Middle-earth into a more modern and prosperous Fourth Age. So I thought I would write my own story about a Dark Lord. But apparently my brain decided that it would be better to write but 7 of them. So that's exactly what I did. So, on to the plot. 40 years ago, dread demonologist Black Hearn was on the verge of conquering the entire continent when she mysteriously disappeared, leaving her vicious captains and bloodthirsty army to fall into disarray. Now, a dark new faith is sweeping the land, and towns and cities crumble before its power. But Black Hearn is not willing to go down without a fight. To defeat this army of fanatics, she must reunite her old captains, persuade them to put aside their differences, and to fight for her one last time. If that sounds good to you, it's out on August 10th. I had enormous fun writing it, and I hope you have just as much fun reading it. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Matthew Ward, author of the Legacy trilogy, the third book of which, Legacy of Light, is out this month. The Legacy trilogy is an epic fantasy set in a world of politics and intrigue where the battlefield is often the safest place and the gods take a keen interest in mortal affairs. But more than that, it's about learning from your mistakes and discovering that you're not trapped by your past. No easy task when tradition defines everything. Legacy of Light is the third and final volume of the Legacy trilogy. Here, as throughout the series, we're following two brothers of circumstance, Victor Cadra and Jasiri Trelan of the Tressian Republic, as well as Milana Saranal of the neighbouring Hadari Empire. For 3 books now, they've been struggling to correct the mistakes of their forebears. For the first time, success is finally within reach, and there's a chance of lasting peace between their realms. But the past carries a long shadow. As a new generation comes of age, old debts fall due. Pride and ambition do their wicked work, and the path beckons to a last terrible war and a final contest between dark and light. If I piqued your interest but you've not yet embarked on the Legacy trilogy, both Legacy of Ash and Legacy of Steel are available in audiobook form, and there's no finer way to get caught up. If you prefer physical books, please do buy independent where you can. If you don't have a local bookshop, there are plenty who will be glad to post copies out to you. That's all from me. Happy reading.
Hi, Brothers Gwynne. It's me, Anthony Ryan, author of the Raven Shadow trilogy, the Draconis Memoria trilogy, the Slab City Blues novellas, the Seven Swords novella series, and a lot of other stuff too. My most recent release is the Pariah, which is out on the 24th of August in the States and Canada, and on the 26th of August in the UK, Ireland, and the rest of the English-speaking world. It's a first-person, medieval-inspired fantasy telling the story of one Alwyn Scribe, a outlaw at the lowest point in society who eventually works his way up, being a warrior via a bloody quest for vengeance. I hope you'll check it out. We'll be running a giveaway for signed hardcovers like this one on my website, anthonyryan.net, closer to the release date. So drop by there if you want to know the details in due course. Thanks very much, and I hope you'll join me on Alwyn's journey.